Hello! In this video, we will be discussing a technique for improving the quality of our shadows, called percentage closer filtering. With what we have discussed so far, our shadows will end up looking pixelated and have a very hard edge. The percentage closer filtering technique will soften the edges of our shadows and hide this pixelation. Percentage closer filtering, or PCF for short, will basically have us blur our shadow results with our neighbors to create a smoother transition from areas in shadow to those not in shadow. The first step in implementing PCF will be to change how we are calculating our shadow factor. Instead of this value being based on only the current pixel, we will also calculate it for the pixel's neighbors, then average the results. Here we can see the results of this update so far. While the shadows will have a slightly softer edge, if we get close to the shadow, we will see that the edges of the shadow have only a few distinct levels, and the transition looks rather chunky and pixelated still. Fear not! HLSL has a special texture sampling function made specifically to be used with the PCF technique to give smoother results. This function is called SampleCmpLevelZero and will be fairly similar to other sampling functions. The LevelZero part of the function name refers to the idea that this function will always ignore the presence of mipmaps, regardless of the filtering used. Our shadow maps will not have mipmaps, so that sounds good to me. The first two parameters of SampleCmpLevelZero are fairly similar to the normal sample function parameters. First, we give it a sampler, though this time we use a special compare sampler. Next, we give texture coordinates for where we want to sample. But what about the compare part of the function name? We will actually pass our depth from the light as the third parameter. SampleCmpLevelZero will use this value to compare to what is in the texture at the given texture coordinates, instead of us having to compare with the sampled results. When doing this comparison, it will use whatever filtering was set by the sampler. If we are using linear filtering, our comparison will be with the interpolated values based on all of the nearby texels to our given texture coordinate. And as a result, we will get a smooth transition at the edge of our shadows. Did you know almost all texture sampling functions take an optional int2 offset parameter? This int2 offset can be used as an offset from the texture coordinates provided in the number of texels to offset. Using this last optional parameter will make getting the shadow factor values for the 8 neighboring texels much easier than trying to adjust your texture coordinates. In the next video, we will be discussing a technique that can be used to improve shadow quality, specifically for large areas of view. This technique is called cascade shadow mapping.